Hello, YouTubers. Because there is a Twitch blackout right now, everybody's not streaming to show support and bring attention to sexual assault and abuse and racism and all of that fun stuff. I decided that maybe it would be a good time to make a video about my own experience with sexual violence. I was thinking about doing something like this when the Me Too movement first started, but I was worried about how me being so open about it would affect my friends and family, but I've decided that nothing's ever going to change unless everybody starts being honest about this kind of stuff. So instead of just talking at the camera today, I'm going to be putting on my makeup. So you're going to get ready with me and we'll go over some things. I have anxiety about this for sure, but we all need to start communicating properly, I think, or nothing ever will change. And this part of our culture or society ties into so many other things, which I'll try to eloquently touch on. But yeah, all right, here we go. All right, so the first time that I was sexually abused, I was in grade 7, 12 or 13 years old. I can't remember exactly. And I went over to my girlfriend's and we got drunk for the first time ever. And I know that seems crazy. The pimple. I know that seems crazy at 12 or 13, but you have to understand we drank like a beer each and maybe, you know, those little airplane bottles of booze, and I passed out on the floor. Shaken telling the story. I passed out on the floor in front of her couch, and I woke up, and her older brother, who was about 25, if I remember correctly, had his hands down my pants, and I didn't know what to do. So I just laid there and I accepted it. And then I started puking and he stopped, and I got up and I ran into her mom's room and passed out in her bed. Her mom wasn't there, she was in her mom's room. The next day, I told her what happened, and she said to me, "Oh yeah, he does that to all my girlfriends," and we stopped hanging out. I don't think I told anyone in my life till years and years later that this happened because of her reaction. I thought, well, what's the point in letting people know if they're just gonna be like, well, you deserved it, or that's just the way he is, or you were drunk, or whatever. Everything women are met with when they try and be honest about this kind of stuff. It was messed up. I felt horrible. I had no idea at that age what was going on. It was scary. And then years later, I started dating this boy, my first love, and he was very abusive, very controlling. I was nearing the end of high school at this point. I was with him for 2.5 years. He not only beat me up on a very regular occasion, he frequently raped me. And I knew it was wrong, but because we were in love, I kind of justified it all the time in my head. And one of the last times it happened, he was living with a bunch of other guys, and I was calling for help, and one of his roommates came into our room and saw I was crying, I was screaming for help, and he just said, "Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt," and turned around and walked away. So it's not really surprising to me that women are terrified, and men are terrified, to come forward after something like this happens to them, because so frequently people don't believe them for some reason. And sure, there are false accusations out there, but it's such a small percentage of the reported cases, and when you take into account so many cases aren't even reported, there's a minuscule amount of false accusations for that to be where this conversation always inevitably goes. So I did a little bit of research to find proper statistics for you guys, and it's a bit tricky. Every website has slightly different stats, different numbers, and that's because there's so little known in reality about all this, because people are terrified to come forward, and when they do, crazy things like only 230 of every 1,000 sexual assaults are reported to police, and out of that 230, only 4 of the abusers actually end up with a conviction. That's crazy. Why? What's the point of even coming forward with stats like that? So it's said between every 73 to 92 seconds an American is raped. I couldn't find global statistics on that, but those experiences that I just shared with you happened in Canada. So this isn't an American problem. You know, there's a crazy rape culture in India that's really sad. It's everywhere. It plagues the world. Like, think about Epstein. It's hard to do this right now. Weird position. Sorry. Epstein knowingly basically had the Lolita Express, his island of pedophilia and poor underage girls, where multiple high-profile people are known to have gone there, seen there, obviously done messed up things. What happened to those people? Nothing. Just Epstein killed himself. Supposedly. I don't know if I believe that. When you think about how the president of the United States jokes about grabbing women by the walks into women's locker rooms, and has 25 accusations from other women for sexual assault as well. It's clearly a somewhat accepted culture, and I don't really understand that. And yeah, it's weird. So 1 in 4, it said 1 in 4 women have experienced some form of sexual violence, and 1 in 6 men have experienced some sort of sexual violence. And I think it's before the time they're 18. So it generally happens to people when they're a lot younger, which is really freaking sad. But there's some other crazy numbers I want to talk about because of all this stuff coming out about like Weinstein and Epstein and people in power. Some interesting numbers with sexual violence and people in positions of power. It's estimated that over 80,000 inmates are sexually assaulted annually. 15,000 soldiers in the military are assaulted annually, and 94% of women in Hollywood have experienced some sort of sexual harassment or violence. That is crazy, and it's not okay, and I don't understand why in 2020 this is such a prevalent thing. I don't get it. This kind of ties into police culture as well. On any given moment, there's something like 200,000 untested rape kits that are collecting dust somewhere in the States. And a lot of that has to do with the fact cops only really want to pursue certain cases, cases that make them look the best, which isn't very good. And I also think that's a very interesting thing to bring up with all of these protests going on right now about defunding the police, and how so many people seem to be misunderstanding what people are talking about in regards to that. There's a lot of weird things in police culture, and I don't think that we should abolish the need for a police force of some kind, but the current system that we have in place isn't working. It is not. In regards to any crime, they half-ass everything. And on top of that, these numbers are disgusting. In just an 8-year period, over 1,200 police officers were arrested for some form of sexual violence. And, of course, knowing what we know about reporting and sexual assault and the police and how people fear them, you can guarantee that 1,200 isn't even close to how much actually happened. And this is 1,200 in different variations. It was over 400 rapes. There's like 600 reports of sexual fondling of some sort during an arrest. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting for sure. Who do you call when you've been raped by a cop? Really, I want you guys to ask yourselves that and think about that really with the police about any situation. And what are you supposed to do if a cop is beating the shit out of you? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to tell? When it's so often proved that the system works in the benefit of the police officers, whether they committed a crime or not. So if a cop rapes you, what do you do? When you live in a society where your friend rapes you and you don't even know what to do, can you imagine that added power structure in play? The same with directors in Hollywood and bosses at work, famous people and young girls. I don't know what kind of person could even do that to someone, you know? So how do you address a problem you can't explain? Why does someone feel the need to assert their dominance over a weaker being in that way? Like, there's no logic behind rapes. So how do you address that? How do you fix that flaw in society? I'm sure less would occur if we actually did something about convicting abusers. I mean, across the board, not just sexual assault, just abuse in general. There's got to be something. We need a better police force that takes this stuff seriously and doesn't just ignore any rape kit that won't benefit their career or whatever logic behind them ignoring all of these cases is. We need to encourage men and women to come forth with their experiences and talk to us. Talk to someone, a counselor, a nurse, a doctor, someone, anyone. Tell them about your experience. Get them on paper. We need to get proper statistics. Like, we don't know anything really 230 out of every 1,000 rapes is reported. That's nothing. And out of that, only 4 people go to jail? Why? There needs to be an incentive for people to be honest about this kind of thing. We really need to talk to our babies too. I didn't know when I was 12 to tell my mom what was going on. What happened to me? I sat with that for so long. Confused because I was so young. I didn't understand. No one should have to go through that alone. No one. And I can tell you, once I started talking to people about my experiences, they would share their experiences with me, and it was pretty shocking. I don't know if I know a single girl in my life, any of my girlfriends, acquaintances even, I think they've all been assaulted sexually in some shape or form. Horrifying stories, arguably worse than what I've been through. And it breaks my heart. And it has nothing to do with their character, what they're wearing, how intoxicated they were. The fact is, you don't have a right to force someone to do something that they're not comfortable doing or too intoxicated to be doing or consent to. It's pretty simple. Go buy a dildo or a fleshlight or whatever. Go into therapy and work on your shit, because yeah, it ain't cool. Like, how do you prevent rape? I don't know. But we need to put our minds together collectively as a society and find solutions to that problem, as well as many other problems that we face. The fact that every day there seems to be a new story coming out is kind of scary. You know? I don't know what to do. What do you guys think? What do you think we should do? How do we fix this? I don't know. Certainly not with the current police force or structure we have in place. That's not doing the job at all. You know, and I don't want it to get too far off track here. I really want this all to be about harassment, but people need to learn how to step outside the box and look at things with a little bit of nuance and an open mind, because most of us have been brainwashed to think like this is it. This is the only way society could ever be run, and it's not true. There's lots of things we could change and evolve, and I think, you know, the police force is definitely a good place to start. If you guys knew your local city's budget for cops, you would not be saying, let's throw more money at it. Look it up. Look up the statistics. Not just how little they do for rapes or sexual assault, but how many robberies get solved. How many murders get solved. You know, something's not right, and throwing more money at stuff isn't always the solution when it's systemically broken. There's flaws in the way it was built. You could argue that with like most countries too. There's flaws in, you know, people didn't know everything when they made America or Canada hundreds of years ago. Things have changed. They could not have envisioned the future that we live in now. So we need to grow and evolve with the progress we make as a society, with technological progress, with automation, social media. I think presidents should be banned from Twitter. There's definitely a weird sect too on the internet of trolls, I guess. People who make light of sexual abuse, assault, whatever. I can think of a few YouTubers like Rice Gum and the Paul brothers. They should probably cut that shit out. Time to grow up, boys. Stop treating women like objects, fake girlfriends. Asking a girl who was raped if she liked it. It's gross. And they have a following. That's crazy. It's crazy. It's craziness. I mean, it's so distracted. So as you can see, my makeup routine is pretty basic. I ain't like one of those fancy makeup artists on the tube. I buy most of my makeup off Amazon. Someone gave this to me years ago. I use two things. The brown for my eyebrows, the black for my little eyeliner, and then I use whatever this is. I don't even make sure my concealer or cover up matches. Blend it, girls. You know, okay, here's what we should do. I would love for you ladies or men to share your stories with me. Get this comment feed going. I want people to see how common this really is. And like, I think if more people understood that someone they know or multiple people they know and love have probably been through something like this. If we normalize the conversation, I think that's step one, is really normalize coming forward, then more women will be comfortable doing it and may potentially lead to more convictions. I hope the people of Twitch take this blackout today seriously and acknowledge some of the things that happen on their platform and with their biggest names. And do better to prevent stuff like that. This navy looks really nice. It's really hard to put makeup on using your phone. Is that how people do this? Or they look in a mirror and then film them? Looks better on camera. We should all just be honest, open, and fucking shed that weight. Take the weight of the world off your shoulders. Come together and realize most of us have been through something like this, and we can all empathize with each other instead of live in our own apathy. I think that's really important, you know? Fuck off with this rugged individualism that's plaguing our society. And this is my look. This is my everyday look. No, this is my glam look. My everyday look is mascara. I'm gonna go make a TikTok, and that just made me think of something else. How creepy the dudes on TikTok are. 'Cause I'm old. I am almost 29. That is not your average age of the TikTok users. And the guys that comment on my videos creep me out. I'm almost 30, okay? They're old, like 40, 50 plus creeps seeking out very specific content on there. And I know that most of the girls and boys on TikTok are underage. That's just another freaky, creepy part in our society. The sexualization of young women. Oh, I should have done more research. This just reminded me of Belle Delphine. It's gross. She portrays herself as if she's like a child in lingerie. And the anime, whatever, probably aging myself right now. She is only 19, so she's still a babe. There's a towel here. She's still a baby, if you ask me, at 19. She'll probably regret this at some point. And in a vacuum, it's one thing. You'll be like, oh yeah, do you, girl? Do you? Make money off those simps. It's all a hustle. She's a genius. Blah, 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 blah. Things I often see said about her. But then, I'm not going to name any names. And I'm sorry if you're watching this video, bro. But I'm calling you out. Someone in my Discord made his profile picture Belle. And my hubby called him out and was like, that's gross. She looks like she's 14. And he actually said, yeah, that's the point. I do not feel comfortable with the sexualization that we are seeing more and more of young women, underage women. Oh my God. I don't know why I didn't think about any of this earlier. I was so nervous about talking about my own experience that I didn't even touch on so many other people that actually tie into this. Danielle Cohen. She's like 14. You should see her Instagram. It's disturbing. And her mom is essentially her manager. It's gross that now mothers are looking at their 13, 14-year-old girls just starting to get curves and boobies and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to make you into a product and sell your naive sexuality to older men on the internet. Tana is another really good example because she just turned 21, but she's been at it for years, since she was underage. And she definitely sensualizes herself. And it's like, it's totally one thing to be like, you do you, you do you. But like, when we're discussing about how society views women and sex and power and everything, I think this all kind of ties together. And again, it's not in a vacuum. These young girls grow up watching these images and think that they do turn it into a hustle. Especially when you think about how, the lower and middle class are basically a paycheck away from being homeless. They're in poverty. And who can really blame young girls for wanting to cash in and make money doing this instead of working a 9-to-5? But that's a whole other discussion. And I don't even know, this YouTube video is starting to get way too long. People should spend more time talking about things that actually matter. And I'm personally sick of living in a society where no one gives a shit about anything, I was like this when I was younger too, and I scared away so many friends because they're like, you complain so much, all you do is complain. But they don't understand that I just want to see positive change. And we're never going to change the world if we don't talk about things, if we don't actively do things to make the world better. Rape and sexual assault aren't just going to go away, especially in power structures where we just let it slide all the time because, oh, they're rich and famous. Oopsies, oopsie daisies. So let's do this, people. Let's stand together and start making positive changes in the world. This is my hashtag #MeToo moment. And thanks for listening to me rant. And it's definitely not as eloquent as I want it to be. I don't really know how to talk to a camera yet. I'm way better at writing things down and kind of organizing my thoughts. I have ADD and anxiety, and it all just kind of like blows up once I have a camera in front of my face. But I have a lot to say, and I hope that people like what I have to say enough that they come hang out and talk to me, because I'm lonely. I've been locked up for 3+ months since coronavirus started, and I could use some mental stimulation. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me and listening, and hope you like my makeup. I'm not a crazy makeup guru, but ladies, I think this is all you really need anyways. What was that? How do people attractively wink?